Hey guys, welcome. I'm Brooke and I'm the female foodie, and today we're actually going to be talking about something that's a little bit different than our typical content, and that is travel. And I'm really excited and I want to just jump straight into this one. Today we're talking about the 10 most important tips for booking the perfect Airbnb. This is something I get asked about all the time. I've actually been living on the road for 10 months now, full time. I've stayed in 25 Airbnbs over the last few years, but predominantly over the last year or two. I already have 8 Airbnb reservations coming up for the rest of this year, and all together I've stayed in Airbnbs for almost an entire year combined. So I have a lot of experience and I've learned a ton throughout this entire process. We've stayed in places like San Diego, Bozeman, Montana, Salt Lake City, Utah, Park City, Utah, Rome, Italy, Santa Monica and Hollywood and Los Angeles, Seattle, Portland. We have stayed in a ton of different properties, cabins, apartments, entire homes. I've stayed in places alone, with my husband, and now with the baby, and even sometimes with our dog. What I'm going to do today is take you through my entire process from top to bottom of how I select the perfect Airbnb so that next time you're going somewhere and you want to use Airbnb, you land a great place. I'm gonna go ahead and jump straight into these tips, but before I do, I'm sharing a special link. It's right at the very top of the description to get you $40 off your first Airbnb. So for sure use that. Let's get started. Tip number 1 is an important one. This is set your non-negotiables. So everyone's gonna have things that are like non-negotiables for them, depending on where they're staying, what they're doing, but Cody and I have learned that we have very specific things that we have to have when we're staying somewhere. Those things for us are gonna look like Wi-Fi. We have to have Wi-Fi. We work remotely. It's really important for us to be able to have a good connection. Air conditioning if we're traveling in the summer, or heat if we're traveling in the winter. Like, you better believe, like, we absolutely have to have a place that is cooled. We're not gonna shell out and spend a ton of money for a place that we're gonna be completely miserable in. So, and then another non-negotiable that we oftentimes use is 2 bedrooms. We travel full-time right now with our baby, and for us in our personal situation, we really prefer him to have his own room. He sleeps better, we sleep better. And then if we're in the States and traveling with our dog, being able to stay at a pet-friendly place is also a non-negotiable. So it's super easy to set your non-negotiables. And I recommend too, if you're spending time looking for a great Airbnb, use the desktop version. Mobile's great. I like to use mobile just to kind of browse, but if you really want to dig deep and make sure you're finding the perfect place, get on your computer. I'll show you real quick how to set those non-negotiables. You can see here that I'm searching for places in New York. So let's say I wanted to do a week-long trip in New York, and then there's 2 adults. These are different types of places to stay. Let's just say we want to look at all of them. Now we're going to specify our non-negotiables. So you want to go to more filters. And then these are the certain areas that I like to look in and make sure that things that are absolutely important and crucial for me are checked off. So like I mentioned, I like to always have a place with 2 bedrooms, which is going to be next to impossible to find in Manhattan. And then things like Wi-Fi, and these are going to be under amenities. So show all amenities. If I'm doing a trip, I want to make sure there's Wi-Fi. If I'm going to New York in the summer, I certainly want to make sure there's air conditioning. Maybe you don't want to travel with your hairdryer, so that's an essential. And then I'll click this button and then it will filter in all of the places. So now it's showing me places that are not only available for those dates and those amount of guests, but they also accommodate to all those needs I have. Also, a really big important thing to do in terms of setting your non-negotiables is clicking the type of place. So I personally always like to have the entire place to myself, but you certainly can save a lot of money if you're willing to do a private room, or if you're interested in looking at certain hotel rooms like that, you can click that, but I always usually press this button, which will narrow down your options even further. Tip number 2, adjust your location. So you're definitely going to be able to find more great quality Airbnbs if you're willing to kind of look around. We're currently spending a summer in Italy. We're spending 2 months in Italy and then a month in England, but we really had an open plan for where we were going. And maybe for you, if you're doing a vacation somewhere and okay, we want to go to Southern California or Greece or Florida, maybe you have a rough idea of where you want to go, but it doesn't have to be this very specific city or town. So when you're on the Airbnb website, you can search for Airbnbs in as big of a location as like an entire country, or you can narrow it down to like a state or region, and then as narrow as like a city or a neighborhood. So I'm going to show you what this looks like now on my computer. So if I'm kind of just having a little bit of a wanderlust moment and I open to staying at different places, I literally just put in Europe, and Airbnb is definitely going to show you some of their best properties when you're doing a really big search like that. Airbnb wants you to have a great experience. So you can kind of just scroll through here and see if anything appeals to you, but maybe you're like, okay, you know, actually we want to go to Italy. So you can type in Italy, and then it will take you into the country of Italy itself. So now I'm kind of looking at all these different properties around Italy. And then if you're like, you know what, I actually really want to go to Rome, you can type in Rome and search just places in Rome. If you have that flexibility, like maybe you know you're for sure taking a trip to Rome, but you're open to staying in these different neighborhoods, you can kind of look at different places here. There's a place that we've actually stayed. And then maybe, for example, you only want to stay in the Monteverde neighborhood of Rome, then you get very specific granular options there. So this is a tip for helping you find more quality properties, is kind of being flexible, but also searching in these different capacities. It'll help you find a lot more places, and then you'll have a lot more options. Tip number 3 is to look for verified listings or to turn on the Superhost button. These are really easy ways to just kind of water out some of the mediocre or just okay places and look for some of the very most reputable, great Airbnb properties. So as you can see here, Airbnb is already showing us some of these plus stays that are available in Rome, and they're doing that because Airbnb obviously wants you to have a good experience with the platform and on here, and they want you to stay at the great places. They want these places to sell out first. It'll always have like this kind of maroon color to it, and then you can press show all to see like all of the plus listings in the area. In terms of just like looking at the general listings, if you're scrolling like this, you can see here which hosts are super hosts by just looking at this little link here. A super host is someone who basically has met certain qualifications through Airbnb's standards of being just a great host, good communication, quality listing. It's basically a way to set apart like really excellent hosts from others. So again, you're kind of looking at these plus properties. These are just like the absolute premier, like best of Airbnb. They're not necessarily the most expensive, as you can see from the prices, but these are just like properties that Airbnb completely stands by. They're really excited to recommend these ones. And then a super host is someone who has been able to kind of set themselves apart in terms of just providing a really great experience, great properties. So you can either kind of scroll these here, or you can go to more filters where we were earlier, and you can do one or the other or both. So you could say like, I only want to see Airbnb and Plus properties, or I only want to see Superhost properties, or you could do both, and then it would show you the results. So now I'm looking at, you know, verified apartments. In some cities, these verified apartments are going to be a lot more costly. It doesn't look like it in Rome through these dates that we have. So a good way to still kind of keep within budget, but to look for great properties. This is an easy way to just weed out some of the really mediocre spots and make sure that you're at least choosing from probably what is considered the best of the best in the city. Turn on the Superhost button, click, you know, show stays, and now these are all properties owned and operated by Superhosts. Tip number 4 is pretty short and sweet, but if possible, only book places that have 5 stars. When I first started using Airbnb, I was a little more forgiving with the star ratings. When you're used to using platforms like even Yelp or Google, it's like, oh, not everyone gives 5-star reviews, but you really want to look for only places that have 5 stars on Airbnb, because usually when they don't have 5 stars, something's like wrong with the property. And in my opinion, if I'm going to spend money to stay at an Airbnb, like I want it to be a good experience, and I don't feel like I should have to like compromise when I'm paying my hard-earned money to stay at a place. So it's really easy to see when you're on the website and you're looking at reservations. You can kind of see the overall rating with this like number. So this reservation here, for example, has 4.88. So this is like almost a perfect 5-star review, which is fine. It's pretty rare to find like all perfect a 5, but you'll see when I click into this, then you can scroll down and see that this listing overall, out of the 112 reviews, it's a 5-star property. So they've got 5 stars on accuracy, communication, cleanliness, value, check-in, and then they've got 4.5 stars on location. So like I said, I'm always looking at 5-star reviews, and even furthermore, I will absolutely not book anything without 5 stars for cleanliness. I've learned this the hard way. We have stayed in places that have mouse poop or animal hair everywhere, or they just kind of feel dirty. And for me personally, when I don't feel clean, I can't sleep well, I can't relax. And then I'm like, why did I pay for this? There were other places I could have stayed. You guys ready for tip number 5? This one is spend a lot of time in the reviews. You are going to learn so much about the place that you're staying in the reviews. I know this probably sounds like a given, but really like dig into the reviews, spend a few minutes and read honestly as many of them as you possibly can. So this is a place that we stayed at in Naples, Italy recently that we loved. But the reason I booked this place is because when you scroll down to the reviews, there's our review. I actually remember reading several of these, but I spent a lot of time in these reviews. And they just had people like singing praises about how amazing this apartment was. One guy mentioned that he like proposed to his significant other in this apartment. Things I like to look out for, you know, specific mentions of things. And in these reviews, I found that, you know, it's a great location from the central station. People mentioned them having like a washing machine, which I appreciated. Some of these reviews did mention like there was a little bit more noise outside, but that doesn't bother us. I did recently find a review for a place in Paris that I was looking at that mentioned that they had seen a cockroach in the kitchen, which is obviously something I'm not going to find in the overall like description or star ratings or anything like that. So I absolutely did not book that place. You can just find so much helpful information, whether it's pros or cons, when you're booking these places on Airbnb. So really dig into the comments. Look for glowing reviews like this where people are just like really enthusiastic. They have a lot of good things to say. Those are the kind of places you want to stay at. Also, if you're looking for something specific, for example, like I mentioned earlier, it's really important for us to have a good Wi-Fi connection when we're staying at a place. You can also search for certain terms and see where they come up. So for example, like the Wi-Fi was easy to use and very fast. This person mentions the washing machine. So this is a great way too if you're specifically wanting to know, like, is there any mention of anything specific? You can search all the reviews right here. So unless you're like independently wealthy or you just have money growing on trees, you're probably at some level conscientious of the amount you're spending on Airbnb. And we have taken a lot of trips with very different budgets, whether it's like we're looking for places that are under $100 or maybe we have a little bit more room in terms of our spending in certain places, but you want to be conscientious of the price when you're booking on Airbnb. So there's a couple ways that you can do that. So the first way you can save money on an Airbnb is a really easy one, and that is book longer stays. So not all hosts, but several hosts will offer a discount for weekly or monthly stays in certain places. And then even if they don't, like we have sometimes asked, hey, we'll message a host and say something like, hey, do you offer a discount for like a stay for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a week or any kind of longer stay? Sometimes they say yes and sometimes they say no. It's very easy for a host to customize the rate or any kind of discount they're issuing. So it never hurts to ask. And my second tip for just making sure you're hitting the right price points is to make sure and like zoom in for a location. So for example, if I'm on the website and I'm looking at properties in Rome, Italy, Airbnb will certainly show me some of their best properties because as I mentioned, they want you to have a great experience, but they're also going to sometimes show you the more expensive listings. So what you can do is kind of zoom in to these different neighborhoods and you'll notice that different places with comparable or even lower price points will pop up. So don't assume that when you're kind of out on that wider view of neighborhoods that you're seeing everything. You want to make sure and kind of navigate around to see the different offerings. You can also go into here under price and change the range and it'll show you too exactly where the majority of properties in this specific location sit. So you can save this right here and then it'll show you different price points. And then even if you're staying for places for like, if you want to stay for an entire month somewhere, let's say your budget is like $2,000. You want to stay somewhere in Rome and click save. And now they're going to show you everything that's within your budget. Tip number 7 for booking the perfect Airbnb is to verify your ID. This is a super easy one. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, but basically when you're in your bio, you can add, like, I think it requires your Facebook profile, address, some type of government ID or official identification. It's basically just like a few pieces of personal info, but what this will do for you is it'll give you the ability to instant book properties. And even if you do have a verified ID, some of these listings, the host wants to be able to like look over your application before they accept it. But a lot of these listings have auto book or instant book, I think is the exact term. So basically with that verified ID, you are able to do so. Verified IDs are also really good because they give you access to more listings. So some hosts only want to allow people into their home with verified IDs, which makes complete sense to me. So it's super easy to do, and then you'll have access to a lot more Airbnbs, which means more access to more quality places. Tip number 8, be a great guest. This might seem a little counterintuitive. You're like, what? I'm booking the Airbnb, I'm the guest. But if you want to establish a good reputation on Airbnb, it's really important to be a good guest because good reviews on your part are a big deal. People that will accept future bookings are going to be able to look at those reviews, and it's really important. I've worked so hard to make sure that I get good reviews because we spend so much time on Airbnb, and the last thing I want is for a host to review my application to like stay at their property and see that like I trashed someone else's place or didn't take care of it. So a few things that you can do that are very basic just to make sure that you're gonna get a great review. First of all, be respectful, make sure the place is clean. Don't leave like garbage everywhere and dirty dishes. Try to like keep it clean and tidy, just the way you would want someone to leave it if you were hosting a property. Accidents happen, like we have a baby, we have stayed in Airbnbs for, we cracked a toilet seat, we ruined a lamp at the last place we stayed, we had a comforter that got a spill on it. So it's normal, things happen, but the first thing I always do is communicate to the Airbnb host, like, hey, this happened, I'm so sorry. And then I ask, how can I make it right? Either A, like, what can I send to you? There's a really easy way to send money over Airbnb. Or like, for example, when we broke this IKEA lamp in our last place that we stayed, we immediately just went and bought a new one. And I told the host, hey, I'm really sorry we broke this lamp, but we replaced it with the exact same one. So hosts totally understand that things happen, but I think that they really appreciate it when you are respectful to them. And then one way to kind of tie a bow on the top is at the end of your stay, you know, send a note to your host, tell them how much you appreciated staying there, and then try to be really conscientious of check-in and check-out times. Running an Airbnb is like running a business for a lot of these hosts, and so you want to be really thoughtful about like coming in a timely manner and leaving so that they can get it cleaned and get it ready for the next guests. Tip number 9 is spend a lot of time reading about the listing. There are so many little pieces of information that you can get about the property when you're looking at the actual listing itself. So first of all, you can obviously see photos, which I think say so much. To me, personally, when I see photos that look nice and tidy and presentable, it usually tells me that this host takes a lot of pride in their property and they're really excited about it. If I see like terrible photos, it is 2019. Like we should all be able to pull out our smartphones and take a decent picture. Sometimes people are just extremely technologically inept, but when I see like a terrible photo, that usually tells me a little bit about the kind of host and the kind of pride they're putting into like their property and their experience for their guests on Airbnb. So look at the pictures and then really dig into like the description of the place. For example, I'm looking now at this listing for a place in Las Vegas. We've got some great photos here. I mean, we can get such a good feel for just the type of place and space that it is. It looks clean. I feel like I can really like see and appreciate the details of this listing. But then here, like we have a lot of info about the place itself. So we've got, you know, a bit about the location. It faces the Strip in Las Vegas. It's boutique style. The ceilings are 9 feet tall. We've got 2 TVs in here. Here's the hours for the pool. There is so much you can learn here in this description, and this is a great one. Like this one just tells you so much, so don't skip this, read it. And then another thing you want to look at is the house rules, which are usually toward the bottom. This person has a ton of house rules. Those are all like really, really, really important things to read over before you book a place on Airbnb. Okay, my 10th and final tip for booking the perfect Airbnb is just spend a lot of time. Don't rush into making a booking. I've done this so many times, and then every time I show up to the reservation, I just regret it. I'm just like, why did I not spend time? Airbnb has certain tactics on their website that will make you feel rushed. They'll say, X% of bookings are taken up for this date, or 20 other people have this eye on their reservation. And of course they're going to do that. It's a platform where they're making a commission off of all of these rentals, so they want to increase their amount of sales. There are plenty of places to stay. There's lots of options, so just take your time, don't be in a rush. And if you follow my method from top to bottom, you're going to find an Airbnb that you love. Don't forget to check out the link that I'm sharing in the description. It will get you $40 off your very first booking with Airbnb. This video is very different from the typical content that I share, so if you felt like it was helpful, just let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you.